Competition among businesses ensures that consumers have a wide variety to choose from at friendly prices. The COMESA Competition Commission is working to ensure fair trade in the region. Betty Kiptum was in Livingstone, Zambia, and had a sit-down with the COMESA Commission Chief Executive, Dr. Willard Mwemba, on how restrictive trade practices are contributing to the rise in cost. Need to protect consumers from harmful practices in the digital space. Take a look.
Hello and thank you for watching KBC Channel 1. We'd like to have an interactive session, and we are coming to you from Livingstone in Zambia, where we are discussing matters of consumer protection. My name is Betty Kiptum, and joining me on this conversation is Dr. Willard Mwemba. He is the Chief Executive Officer at the COMESA Competition Commission. Thank you very much for joining us. Maybe we could just start with an understanding of what consumer protection is and why it is important.
We are all consumers, including yourself. And whatever we do, especially in this modern world, involves consumption. Whatever we do. Even what I'm doing with you here, Betty, you are consuming some information from me. So we cannot escape from consumption, and wherever there is interactions with humans to obtain or consume something from them, there is also risk that in that process of consumption, somebody's welfare, somebody's interests may be injured. And that is why consumer welfare and consumer law enforcement is important. It is to ensure that in our quest to consume various goods and services, we consume them in a manner that does not expose us to injury, not physical injury, but injury in terms of our welfare. So if I'm trying to consume a product, it should be given to me in a manner that is expected. It should be given to me in the condition that is expected. It should be given to me at the price that is expected. And usually these sometimes become a problem because you will not get it at the right price sometimes. You will not get it in the manner that is expected sometimes. You will not get it in the condition that is expected.
Consumer protection in other developed markets is very robust, and for Africa, the matters of competition as well as consumer protection are a bit new.
That's correct.
How can we ensure that we are getting there, and what are competition authorities such as yourself and even local authorities doing to make sure that we are getting to that level or even close?
In fact, you started very well. We should be getting to that level, not dreaming of getting close to that level. So we should be getting to that level, Betty. And yourselves, the media, should be in the forefront of helping us to get to that level. But before I come to yourselves and remove ourselves as regulators and put more responsibility on yourselves, I'll start with the regulators. I think us as regulators should be more robust about the enforcement of consumer laws. Us as regulators, we should appreciate the reasons why we were established and put in those offices. I've always said this, maybe even to you, Betty, because I'm very passionate and emotional about this, that most of us sit in those offices without appreciating really why we're in those offices. Okay, and why I say without appreciating is it's business as usual, laissez-faire attitude to the approach. When you hear of a consumer case, does it move you to make sure you resolve that case? Or it is the usual thing, well, it has happened, it has happened. That is the beginning of the problem, and that's what I've seen in a number of countries, in a number of different institutions. So us as consumer authorities, I think we should be held accountable on whether we are performing the mandate for which we were created. So, for example, if there are serious consumer violations happening in COMESA, and the COMESA Competition Commission has never said a word, their people, their citizens, their journalists should be able to speak against our inertia, against our inactivity, to put us on our toes so that we act. This is what happens in the West. Put them on their activities so that they act. Our people should become aware of their rights and obligations as well. They arise under the law so that when those rights are not safeguarded by the Commission, we should be able to be compelled to do that, even legally. I don't want to become too legalistic, but there's what is called an order of mandamus that most people do not know about. So an order of mandamus is where a public institution will be compelled by the courts because someone has taken the matter to court. Can you act on this? This is your mandate. I've rarely seen those things in our countries. It happens so much in the advanced jurisdictions, as you said, where citizens simply rise, take the matter to court, and compel a public body to act. In your country, Kenya, I try to follow things there. There's some good levels of aggression there, but it's one of just few countries. We need so many to do that.
Agriculture is the mainstay of most African economies, and a lot of people on the planet depend on agriculture. Farmers, on the other hand, are getting poorer by the day, and prices of food are just going higher and skyrocketing. Where is the disconnect, and is there a competition issue here?
Serious competition issue exacerbated by certain policies. And before I even address your question, Betty, do you know that Africa has some of the most arable land in the world? Okay, the entire planet. Africa is the most arable land, but Africa is the poorest when it comes to food produce. And can you imagine, with the most arable land, in fact, we import a lot of food than we export. I think that is not right. So why should it be like that? We are endowed with God blessed us with lots of natural resources, good land, but we cannot utilize that. We actually end up importing more food than we can produce. So your question is right and comes at the right time. Then what is the problem? The problem are big companies in the agri value chain, which are multinationals. Okay? So they know very well that with this arable land that we have, if right conditions are put in place, and we are able to produce and export and feed our people, then their own existence is threatened. So they would rather engage in conduct that will make it difficult for you to grow that food, or difficult for you, while you've grown that food, difficult for you to get the right price for that food, or even when you've grown that food, difficult for you to make sure that it is stored properly and exported. They will make it very difficult that even when you have got all these resources and good land, it becomes useless, because they are pulling the strings, controlling how the market or agri value chain should look. Because if they don't do that, then it threatens their own existence. That is where the problem is. So we have quite a lot of anti-competitive concerns in the agri market, perpetuated by multinational corporations to make sure or to ensure their self-preservation. But again, the same multinationals, outside clear anti-competitive behavior, they also end up using what is called lobbying. And they will go to our governments, present a real situation, and the government will say, well, this is a good situation to address this. We'll put in these policies. So, for example, I'll give you an example. They will lobby the government to put in import restrictions. Why? Because if they are a multinational operating in a certain jurisdiction, those imports may threaten their own prices. Because once imports begin to come in, the imports come in. So they lobby the governments to put in those import restrictions, okay? And they'll be telling the government, look, it is collapsing the price for the farmer. That's what they'll say. But when the import restrictions are put in place, have we seen the price for the farmer go up? No. Because in fact, the farmer is not dealing with the importers and what. The farmer is dealing with these same guys. So for them, they'll still continue buying from the farmer at the very same price, and the import restriction only benefits them. So that is another very big problem, in that they will present a real situation, go to our governments, government will say, well, this is a problem, put in policies which ultimately benefits them. When there's so much food that even them, where they've gotten so much from the small-scale farmers at low price, their silos and their storage facilities are full. they'll go to the government and say, well, there's quite a lot of produce in the market, and what is happening because of this produce, there is so much, and the price for the farmer will be suppressed. The same reason. So let's export. Again, they are the same ones who will benefit from that because they are the only ones who export. So while you're thinking you're addressing the poverty situation, you are actually waging it more and more and more because the good policies that you are actually putting in place are benefiting those who are already privileged and keep on suppressing those who are already underprivileged. Those are the basic conditions that are frustrating and making agric and food markets not to work well against us as consumers who buy that food, but against the farmer who is producing that food.
Right. So given that situation, what are competition authorities doing to stop this?
In terms of the private actors, these ones that I've talked about, the multinational corporations, we have begun investigations against some of them, both at regional level but also at national level. I know the Competition Authority of Kenya, for example, is doing a lot of work as a result of some studies. So what are we doing about it? As a result of some studies that the COMESA Competition Commission did to expose some of the concerns in the agric and food value chains, some competition authorities have picked up that and started their own investigations or their own studies. Kenya is one very good example, Competition Authority of Kenya, who were part of the same study that the CCC did. They've localized it also back home and began to expose some of these businesses. Some of them were engaged in cartels. Cartels to exacerbate the situation. Because of this, the Kenyan Competition Authority has ended up exposing them and fining them heavily. That is one thing we are doing about investigation, but also research and policy recommendations where we can't investigate against the government. Because the government, to be fair on them, Betty, whatever policies they come up with, there is no leader who will be stupid to want to come up with policies that injure his or her own people. So all those policies we see, they have good intentions. Because every leader wants his or her people to be happy, and to be happy with his leadership. But why is it that some of the policies end up not working for the people? It's the same situations. The government policy that is well intended is manipulated when it comes to operation on the market. So it fails to work. But what can we do against the government as competition authorities? Because we are created by governments. We are the creature of government, so we can't enforce against them. But what we can do is to come up with policy recommendations and show them clearly in black and white. This that you are doing is having these negative consequences. It is benefiting people who are not intended beneficiaries. We think you can do A, B, C, D. Sometimes it takes long because remember, competition law and policy is just one aspect of so many, or an array of government policies. So you have to be very convincing, Betty, to tell them that these policies should listen to the competition policy to work properly. It's a tall order, but it happens, and you have to be very strategic about it. And that's why we are bringing the diplomats here. From the diplomats, the other thing that we are doing is to send the actual report. We have, I don't know if you picked those books already, actual reports to our ministries of agriculture, our ministries of trade, so that they see the issues that are coming there. When the ambassador goes to his, because the ambassador's the intention is that they'll go to their government, goes to their government to say, this is what we have heard and we appreciated, we've understood, these are the concerns. The government will say, oh, in fact, we've received also a report from those guys. What you are saying may be true. We begin to change the scenario, we begin to change the system. It's difficult, it's a tall order, but it's better to do something than just sitting.
There are a number of legal changes that the COMESA Competition Commission is undertaking currently. And one of those particular changes includes a focus on the digital market. Kenya, as well as many other African countries, have a very robust digital ecosystem. So how are these legal changes going to affect how consumers consume digital products?
It's very interesting. I'll start from the very consumer perspective. Betty, and as you said, for example, mobile banking in Kenya is very robust. And I think it's one of the examples in Africa, but even beyond, by the way, the Europeans are using that model now of M-Pesa and what, you know that, right? Yeah. And we are happy about that because it came from an African project. Yeah, so Kenya has done very well there. But what that has entailed is that even old people, my grandmothers, and even those people, without any disrespect, who never went to school, for various reasons, obviously, maybe they were not privileged, have ended up having to understand how to use that cell phone. That cell phone is in the digital space because some of the things that you are doing, they are press this, press that, press this. That is a digital economy working. But from that, they've also been all these sorts of scams. You put in this, what do they call it, the USSD, do this, do that, somebody's money is siphoned. Or even the players themselves, they'll put so many conditions there that you and I, even you and I who are educated and who are exposed, may not have time, because who reads all those small conditions? You just sign and you don't know what you've signed for. You start seeing certain deductions from your... All those are digital platforms, by the way. And we want to make sure that companies will not be taking advantage, number one, of less privileged and unaware consumers. But number two, even us who are educated and a bit more privileged, they've made it in such a situation that the contracts that you end up saying, I agree. You remember, you see there's that thing, agree to the terms. And do you read those things, Kipkun?
No, I don't.
You know me, I don't. Huh?
I don't.
Yeah, so I may be a person with a legal background who is expected to read all those things, but I don't. Where will I get time to read that long thing in that fine print? So just say, agreed. Okay, but you don't know what you've agreed to. We want to make sure that if there's anything in that which you know people will not read and they'll just agree, you will not say, no, they agreed, because we know your strategy. These are the things that we are doing. When it comes to competition outside consumer, it's also the same issue that we have found that from a competition point of view, companies have claimed that we are small. Remember, competition laws sometimes do not significantly apply to small companies. The reason is that they don't want to apply. No, the reason is that the effect on the market and against consumers is almost insignificant. It's negligible. We call it de minimis in law. It has no consequence. But the same behavior by someone else who is big, it has terrible consequences on everyone. But we use parameters to say we'll act on this one. And one of the parameters is how much money are they making? What is the turnover? They say, no, they are big. They are making more than this money, then they are big. Their behavior will affect everyone. But in the digital space now, the issue there is not about making money per se from turnover. The issue is, how do you manipulate the data that you have for the consumer? How do we perpetually make betting? How do we make betting perpetually connected to this company? Because they have all had that. Have you, and I don't want to mention companies, I want to be very careful, but have you noticed that the moment you buy a phone like mine, which is an Android, it automatically connects to all the other Android gadgets that I had. By the way, it has connected to my old phone, it has connected to my tablet, everything, and all my data is there. At the end of the day, what ends up happening is that the importance of those transactions and conduct is not so much about turnover, but what it is that they are looking from you. Their data, your data. You know how those maps, the Google Maps, how they work? Yeah, it's this data that these people have. Have you wondered when you're on the net, you search something, the next coming months, they'll always be bringing you something that is related to that. AI, all that is digital, and digital content and digital platforms and digital economy. And that is what is important to them. So you may end up saying, oh, they are not making any money in Africa. But you may be wrong. So that law that is coming will be able to discern and look through that to say, it's not just the turnover. What other aspects may be harmful to consumers and markets as a result of this measure, looking beyond just how much money they are making. So those are some of the issues that are coming, and we hope when the implementation begins, they will contribute to the welfare of society.
So as we come to a close of this conversation, what is the way forward for consumers in Africa? What should they be looking forward to?
Forward for consumers in Africa, Betty, I would reiterate, competition and consumer authorities, please up your games wherever you are at national level. We are there to make sure that consumer welfare is safeguarded. But consumers also do not be so casual about the issues that affect you. I've seen consumers, including myself, by the way, where I've bought something that is terrible and it breaks the moment I get home, and I just say, it's okay. I don't have the energy to start arguing with these people. No, let us be more involved, even no matter how small it is, because if we start making a lot of noise, businesses will realize that people cannot be taken for granted. Competition authorities, consumer authorities, be robust about your work. Consumers, be active, complain. It doesn't matter. It's even better to be called a complaining consumer. It's okay as long as your welfare is safeguarded. Media, please, Betty, work with us. Expose our work where we've done well so that people can have confidence in the system to come and complain, because they know if we complain, the matter will be resolved. Sometimes they don't come because they say, those people don't do anything. I've complained and complained. So when we do good, expose our good works. But when we also don't do good, expose and embarrass us. Because next time we say, oh, Betty, she will write something if we are not doing we are on our toes. So that is the way forward that I see for the benefit of all of us. Where there is a good consumerism, Betty, where consumers are satisfied, consumers are the drivers of the economy. Do you know how economies collapse? Even those things you call global meltdown of 2008, it's because consumer confidence in the market has collapsed. They stop spending, the economy stops running. So we need to make sure that consumer confidence is in the market by being involved, all of us.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, and thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Asante for your time.
Karibu.
I have been speaking with Dr. Willard Mwemba, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the COMESA Competition Commission. And we have been talking about matters consumer protection, why it is important. And he says that all consumers need to be protected from unfair trade practices. And of course, businesses need to offer competition and choice for consumers. Well, that's it for this particular conversation. My name is Betty Kiptum. Thank you very much for watching.